Good evening. Good evening to
Hello.
everyone that's joining us, and good evening to our special guest. We are doing our second episode of Mothers Against Racism, and just a little housekeeping. The last episode, our sound was a little murky, so we, as mothers, figured it out as we normally do, right, ladies?
That's right.
But we have a very, very, very special guest with us, and we are very excited to have a conversation about motherhood and racism and how it impacts our role. We have a leader, an educator, an advocate, an entrepreneur, and more, and most importantly, a mother. Wanda Durant, a
Oh,
mother of two African American young men, Tony Durant and Kevin Durant. And as you all know, Kevin Durant is an all-star NBA basketball player, and he has an all-star mom. So, Wanda, welcome to the show.
thank you for having me. Thank you. And
We're
and let's not forget a champion, two-time
A
champion.
champion. That's right. Let's not forget. That's excellent. So, we just obviously wanted to start off our episode with a bang. And we just wanted to make everyone out there know we're very serious about our conversations. And, we want to get the best. We want to get people who have a vast knowledge of how this impacts, their lives and the lives of their children, and use this as an educational platform to other moms that are out there that are listening and looking to us as role models for just tools and ways to navigate through the world that we're in. So, Donna, I'll open it up for you just to add a little introduction as well. If not, we'll just proceed.
oh no, let's just go right ahead.
All right, wonderful.
Welcome, Wanda. We're thrilled to have you with us.
Thanks, Donna. I'm glad to be here.
Wanda, I'll just start with some questions for you. I'm sure the audience wants to know a lot about you, and obviously we talked about, and most people know you from being the real MVP, and
Yeah.
Kevin Durant's speech about you and how impactful you were in his life. But what we want to know is who's Wanda Durant?
Well, I'm a mother, and I am a entrepreneur. I am a supporter of those who are undeserved, who have life experiences mine. I am an advocate for the youth with positive youth development. I am an advocate for single moms and for the family. To be quite honest about it, I think if we all share our experiences and how we navigate through life and share them with one another, it gives other families the belief and the hope that they can too keep going without quitting. And so that's who I am now. I am a mother and I am a grandmother. And I enjoy those roles in my life, but ultimately, I'm just Wanda who happens to do the things that I'm doing. And so, my passion is to lend my experiences and my voice to the communities across the world, and that's what I've been doing.
That's great. Um, we've had some conversations prior to this call, and you brought up some very important points about what race and racism means to you.
Hmm.
And I'd like you to give you an opportunity to share that view. And also, Donna and I have talked about very influential people in our lives who have kind of shaped our view on racism. And I want to know who in your life shaped your view, and what is your definition?
Well, the my family and my extended family really shaped my views on racism, and then the media, the television. Growing up, um, there were black families on TV, and I kind of saw some of. We had the Jeffersons, and then we had Good Times, and so we saw the difference there. But
Hmm.
from day to day, I was taught by my parents. I mean, my mom and my extended family. And one of how they taught me is not necessarily about you can't do anything because you're African American or you're black or you're Negro. It was that you have to work hard. You have to always dig deep and work. And so that was pretty much what it was. And when I really experienced Before I go into my experiences, let me just uh, give you my intake on racism and prejudices and biases. I think racism is a word that we kind of throw out sometimes kind of loosely. I think when we're dealing with our peers on a day-to-day basis, people in our neighborhood at the grocery store, I think we deal with them. And when we use the word racism, that's kind of too much. And I think
Right.
use that word, it causes people to become guarded and defensive. I think racism is when you are in a position of authority to impact or affect change on a person's life, and you do it based on whether it's negative or positive. You do it based on your perception of a person.
That's
I think
right.
that's where policy making comes in my opinion, or a manager or a supervisor over a job. But when we are interacting with one another and we have negative perceptions of a person's culture, of
Mhm.
race, because we really it's been something passed down or what we've seen on TV or whatever the case may be. I think when we deal with it from that perspective, if we deal with it from that perspective, it allows people to be a little more open about it. And I think what's going to help push forward the dialogue is allowing people the space to be truthful about what it is that they think.
Right, right. And I think that's exactly why we wanted to open up this platform to
Hmm.
allow people, especially mothers, to have an open forum as to, what are these prejudices that are out there? What are these biases that are out there? Because I think a lot of people don't even realize it sometimes
Yes,
that they're offensive.
yes.
And so I think you're right. I think, to kind of bring it down to more of a daily interaction within your own community,
Hmm.
and define those subtle words or behaviors or things that eventually I think kind of probably build a bigger
Yes.
mindset about racism. But you're right. I think it definitely should start with the breakdown of what these little nuances are and how it affects us.
Yes, and to be and allow people because the fact of the matter is we all have perceptions of different cultures and different races based on our experiences, based on the experiences of those we know and love. But we
Hmm.
have to, in my opinion, I think in order for it to impact our hearts and affect our hearts, and therefore illuminating more of who we are, we have to allow people to be honest about the conversation. Um,
Amen.
if you don't like me because of perceptions about what you think I stand for, I would give you the space to say that. We just have to agree to
Mhm.
be respectful. And
That's right.
then we have to agree to be in a dialogue about it. But I think that the issue is that people sometimes feel that they may not be heard outside of their group or ways of thinking. And
Hmm.
so, as mothers, I think that connects us across every culture. When
That's
you
right.
think about, motherhood, we all want the best for our children. We all do whatever it takes for our children to be more successful than us, or to live out their dreams or whatever that is. So I think that's the one unifier that mothers have. And so if we connect on that level, then we're able to really kind of break down different conversations so that we can have them. And I think that's really what's needed. But it needs to start from the grassroots up, because once it starts at home in standing at the fence talking to your neighbor, or having a disagreement with your neighbor based on our prejudices or biases, really talking about it at that level, then it becomes it's bottom up instead of top down.
That's right.
But it's also about understanding, walking in each other's shoes. What is your
Yes,
life like? What is my life like?
exactly.
Let's really look at that. Let's step outside ourselves and share.
Exactly. But and I even think that, and I think that's a perfect idea. Um, but I even think when we when we begin to, we don't even really have to step out of our shoes, so to speak, because we are in the same shoes, but we have to
Ah,
see it that way.
That's right.
okay. All
Really,
right.
I think we really have to look at it that it's not us and them and you and they. It's just our. Um, and how do we get to that point that we all see that it's our? Now,
Right.
I'm a black woman. Donna, you're a Caucasian woman. Now, there's a difference there. We know that. Okay, and even with you, Daniel, there's a difference. Even though we're African American women, we may have different backgrounds that and different experiences that create perceptions about one another. But if we never open up the conversation to find out what it is, we just won't, because when we think about it, even within our own race, there are a lot of different perceptions based on class.
That's right.
Black community based on skin color, um, ec- uh,
Mm.
um,
Culture, even.
culture,
Hmm.
demographic. I mean, geographically, what zip code you were born in,
Hmm. Hmm.
you know,
Oh, okay.
those kind of things. All of those things, are factors into how we become. Um, or I'm not how we become, but how we think the way we do about others.
That's right. That's right.
So we just need some wider shoes.
Or
And
realize a lot of us wear the same size shoe. How about that?
that's right. How about that? And that's what I think this connection is with this platform.
Yes,
We're all mothers, and
yes,
That's
we
right.
want to have that conversation. We want to open up the dialogue on who we are, and what influences in our lives have made us who we are, and then
mhm,
how we transcend that to our children.
yes,
you know and Donna
That's
and
right.
Eve and I talked about last week how there was a defining point in our lives where we, despite the fact that we had moms or mothers who really made us feel like everyone's equal, we're all here, we're all human, we're all one, we all need to love one another, and we went out in the world and expressed that. There was a moment in our lives where we realized that we were perceived as different by the outside.
Mm.
Do you have a defining moment in your life where was a situation where you realized you were feeling um oppressed or suppressed or just different, and someone made you feel that way outside of your home and your community?
well, the first time that I felt different is when I was bused in, it was kindergarten, first grade.
Mm.
Oh,
I felt the difference when I was bused outside of my community to go to school. Um, I felt the tension. I had a Caucasian teacher, and I noticed at 5 that she didn't smile at us, black,
Mm.
oh,
but she smiled at the other Caucasian kids. And I noticed that at 5. It hurt my feelings that she didn't, because I was trying to do everything I could as a 5-year old to be pleasing to your teacher, because that's what I had experienced at my previous school in Head Start. And so
Right.
I knew that, but it didn't. I don't think it really changed anything in me, because I had a mother who was a survivor.
Mm.
So that's what my example was. And I had an older sister who worked hard. So those were my examples. And then later, I was about 10 years old, probably in junior high school, 13, 12 or 13. And that's when I really noticed that there was a difference in how the black girls were treated versus the white girls
Hmm.
of school. And that affected me. That bothered me. Um, it really bothered me, just how the teachers would talk to you and how they would just their tone and their mannerisms. You could tell there was a difference.
Wow.
Mhm.
where did you go to school?
In Maryland.
Okay.
In Maryland. Mhm.
And what was the racial makeup of the school?
Um, well, early on in the 5th grade, I really don't know that, because I was 5 years old. I mean, in the first grade, I really don't know
Hmm.
that. But in junior high, I believe it was maybe 60-40 or
Hmm.
50-50. I mean, it was a relatively mixed school, black and white school, with black students and white students.
Hmm.
Mm, yeah.
Okay.
So I think we fast forward to to motherhood now,
Mm,
and I think the three
Mhm.
things we have in common based on hearing our stories, if we were raised by strong women,
Yes.
women of conviction,
yeah.
women who did not allow the outside to deter or detain us from being who we wanted to be, who we were supposed to be in life.
Hmm.
And now we fast forward to motherhood, and now with the environment sometimes preaching a different story than what we were told and taught at home. How did the prejudices and the biases and the experiences that you've had with racism or other, being considered other, how did that create, shape, and define motherhood for you with your boys, Tony and Kevin?
Well, I never allowed that word racism to impact how I wanted to raise my sons.
Wonderful.
I didn't think about that. I knew the qualities that I wanted to instill in them, and those were my focuses, not racism. Um, I'm sure I knew that it was there and it existed, but in our world, being a mother, that wasn't the focus. I wanted you to
Wonderful.
learn how to work hard, to be committed to something, and I had to teach those things. And
Hmm.
because I think you learn those things by experience, and so I wanted to be an integral part in being engaged with my sons to teach that.
Hmm. Hmm.
Or that, um, and even and as we talked a couple of days ago,
Hmm.
um, when I would even say that was a little bit prejudice or just throwing out the term that was somewhat racist. My sons were like, "Mom, that's too much." They didn't
Mhm.
accept that because that wasn't in their peer view at the time.
Right.
They have friends of different colors and different cultures and backgrounds, and so they didn't see it the way I saw it. And so once they said to me, "No, I don't think that's what it is," I had to be mindful that I wasn't kind of infiltrating them with something of my own experiences, and so that's something that I allowed them to experience on their own. And so
Wonderful.
growing up, that no. Mm-mm.
Wonderful.
I don't, I'm sure now that they're men, they probably had experiences that they can see was somewhat, they were dealing with, some prejudice behavior, but
And that
that,
was my next question. That
mm,
was my next question. Have they ever, told you about any situation? And you don't have to go into details, but as a mother, when they did, express something to you, how did you then handle it after they've had a kind of bout with a situation? How did you handle it as a mother? Because I think mothers out there want to know, what's the best way, or but what was the way you handle it once they did find or come face to face with an issue?
and see, it's really, for me, it's really, I don't have that traditional story that some people may have when it comes to racism, because my sons have, and go back, let's go back a bit. Like, basketball was a mode that I used to give my sons space outside of the home to kind of learn some of the values that I wanted to instill in them. And so with basketball, that is a multicultural sport. And
Right.
so early on, it was just pretty much a community sport. But because my sons had um, become somewhat successful at that particular age, they were able to travel around. And so there were kids of all cultures playing basketball. So
Right.
that's what they knew. And so, and in the arena of basketball, when it came to my sons, it was based on your skill set and not
Hmm.
your race. And so early on in their young adult life, I don't think they experienced it the way I had experienced it. At least they hadn't talked to me about it. Um, but as they've gotten older, they have recognized the fact that it does exist. But they've always had a group of friends or business colleagues that were multicultural, and so they didn't have to deal with it on the same level that I dealt with it. You know,
Hmm. Hmm.
if that makes sense.
No, it
Does.
does make sense, but um, at the age, for instance, they started going out and driving cars or anything. How did you feel about their safety?
Um, being stopped, there was a etiquette that needed to be followed when you were stopped by the police officers. That was just a part of being young black males, and those were conversations that the male influences in my son's life had with them, and conversations that I alluded to. Just make sure you're following directions. Don't mouth off. Just have all your identified paperwork in your car, and just be compliant and listen. And so that was the conversation that I had. But um, to be quite honest, in the last 10 or 15 years is when I really, really became concerned about my son's driving. Prior to that, there was an etiquette that you be respectful to the police. But in the last 15 years or so is when
Mhm.
I worry even today about my son's driving. And we have those conversations. Yeah.
And in our last episode, I was telling Donna about my friend app that I have on my iPhone, and my sons. I'm able to track everywhere they go once they leave my presence, and I could see what road they're on. I could see, when they turn off. I could see, so I religiously follow that app when they're not with me, just to see where they are, and if they're at home.
You have that on your phone.
Find My. It used to be Find My Friends, now it's called Find My. And I really look at it when they're driving because I want to see, what's happening. And but you're right. It's become worse. It's become a little bit more concerning for mothers. And
Yeah.
in light of everything that's going on in America with the police brutality and the profiling and everything else that's going on, you are more concerned now probably than we were
Yeah.
before.
Mhm.
And the the state of the country is now focusing on that,
Yeah.
and it's very important for us to continue to educate them and continue to make them aware of the proper etiquette. And there's things that we suggest that you should do, and you do, and sometimes those things are not even worth going through because you come across an officer with a different agenda,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that's unfortunate at times for our young men. But it's something that they have to navigate through, and I definitely agree with you that compliance is huge. Whether they feel they were stopped unjustly or they were profiled, it does not matter. I think
Whether they feel
compliance.
that they're innocent or not,
Yes.
and the goal is really to get them home safely.
Amen.
That's the ultimate goal. Is to and what we're finding out is that it happens. It just happens all the time. So I just don't really understand why it keeps happening. But the ultimate goal is just to get home safely. And if
That's
you
right.
feel that your rights have been violated, then
Mm-hmm.
wait till
Mm-hmm.
you get home and follow, contact your local
Mm-hmm.
jurisdiction or contact an attorney.
That's right.
But
Okay,
ultimately get home.
so my question to you is, do you think we know more, that it's happening more because of social media? Has it always happened, or has it increased? Or if it is increasing, why has it increased?
Well, I think social media has illuminated a lot in
Okay.
in our lives, and so uh, to say that it's happening more, I don't believe that it's. I think it's happening at an alarming rate, but I think it has always happened, and we're just getting evidences of
Okay.
it happening.
Hmm.
Why there is an increase of it? I think that the those being pulled over are frustrated. I think they're afraid. I think the police officers are afraid. I think the police officers know that there's a lot of tension out now. And I haven't talked to them. This is just
Mm-hmm.
this
Right.
I'm just thinking about this. Um, so the tension is high. Everybody is tension is up, and tension is great with everyone.
Mm-hmm.
Um, And I think the slightest change just I can't answer that. I don't even know. I
Hmm.
don't know. I don't know. I'm trying to, wrap my brain around why this keeps happening. What's going on? I, and I'm speechless.
You see, I think it's been going on, and it's being illuminated. I think that's really what's. I think it's always been there, and now we just know about it. People have cameras, people have phones, and
Hmm.
we're videotaping it, and we're hearing more about it, and we are exchanging ideas like where we are today. We didn't, 20 years ago, this wouldn't have been thought of to do. So,
And mhm. And I think now, with the evidence, the video evidence
hmm,
that's out there,
right,
you
exactly.
know, allegations are now. It's not a law officer's word against an alleged someone who has done something. Now there's actual video and evidence that the police were wrong in their behavior and treatment. And prior to that evidence, it in a courtroom, everyone would believe the police officer, because you just think the integrity of the police officer is probably higher than an alleged any allegations brought to someone. So I think now that we have video evidence, I think now it's really coming out that there are some bad apples out there. There are some real situations that are uncalled for and unjust and unfairly, and cause some unfairly treatment of people, guilty or innocent. Guilty or innocent, that doesn't matter. What
Right.
matters is how they're treated
Yeah.
lawfully.
Yeah. I agree. I agree.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. All right.
Well, this is great. I have a question for you. Obviously, you have really done a lot for, and you mentioned it, been an advocate for underserved children and single moms and communities in need. Why Mothers Against Racism? What is it about our um, maybe intended goal that you felt a connection to? Because we had a connection last week, and you said this was on your heart to kind of be a part of this in any way you can. What is it about Mothers Against Racism that you felt such a strong connection, and what would you want to see moving forward for our organization?
Well, the reason why I was connected because I think we as mothers, we are all the same. It's just we are the same. We want, as I stated earlier, we want the best for our families. We want the best for our children. We will work hard and sacrifice to do whatever we need to do to support our children. And I think if we connect as mothers to deal with this issue of racism and biases and prejudices, if we do that as mothers, I think we have a better chance of really delving deeper into understanding why and then coming up with solutions. I think
Mm-hmm.
so that's why. Um, I think the long term, short term, and long term goal for Mothers Against Racism is to make sure we include all mothers from every culture, reach
That's right.
out to every um, diverse culture, race, um, so that we can begin this open dialogue. And so
Mm-hmm.
that the dialogue, and then we'll realize that we're all the same. And I
Yeah.
say this a lot with regard to the older women in the family. I have friends of different races and whom I love dearly. And when I get around them and I'm around the older women in their family, they're pretty much the same group of older women.
Right.
And so, and that kind of gives me chills actually, and it kind of warms my heart. If we start there and realize that we're all so connected, I think it'll really kind of bust open this myth that even though you may like white rice, I like brown rice. Someone like rice and peas, but it's still rice. You know what I mean?
Exactly. You're right.
So that's what I hope to see from the organization, that is all inclusive.
That's
Wonderful.
right.
And because I think that's when change will really be impactful to us all.
Great. Well, Wanda, we really want to appreciate, really want to thank you for your time and appreciate your time that you spent with us this evening. I think it was a phenomenal conversation.
Thank you
I
for
think it set
having me.
the tone. Oh, you're welcome. I think it set the tone for what to expect from our interviews and our little conversations about race from a mother's perspective.
Mhm.
You've been wonderful, and let's the hope this is the beginning of a long relationship as friends and as mothers. And
Yes,
I think your message to everyone out there in Facebook Live that's watching and YouTube is we all must come together as mothers
we just
That's
have
right.
to come
and
together.
defeat racism and defeat the prejudices and the biases that are out there. And this is a platform for you to tell your story, and I think most people hearing your story have a great appreciation for what you've done and how successful you've been as a mom, raising two great young men and a phenomenal NBA basketball player.
You're a two-time
Kudos to
champion.
you. Yes, two-time champion. Kudos to you. It was
Thank
a pleasure, and I look forward to a great relationship moving forward. But I'll open it to any questions that you may have, maybe of Donna and I, maybe for the last 3 minutes we have here, if you would like.
Yes, I would like to know, how do you, based on what I've said about making sure it's all inclusive for all cultures and races of women, how do you plan to um, undertake that goal, or to take on that goal to be all inclusive?
That's a really good question. I think that we're just open to anyone and everyone who wants to join in with us, either Facebook, messaging us, if they have a suggested person that we should interview. I think that we're just very open to any mother who wants to jump on board.
Hmm.
There are no barriers here.
Okay, good. I
And,
think great. Go ahead.
and I think that the mere fact that the two co-founders are of different races says a lot. I have so many friends that say, why aren't more African American mothers the face of Mothers Against Racism? And that's not what we're here for. We're here to be a link for mothers of all race, of all
Yeah,
cultures, of
yeah,
all ages, of all demographics. And I think Donna and I, being the two co-founders, two women who are obviously opposite if you look at us, but we have such a rich history and share such a great connection. I've been over to her house. We've been out to dinner with my family and her family,
and
and the connection. I mean, if we want to break down the barriers of racism, we can't have a one-sided view of who we are. We can't not be inclusive to every and anyone. And I think we would do our organization a disservice if from the onset we weren't inclusive and didn't provide a wide variety of different women to be a part of this platform.
And I think, and you're right, because I think one of the ways to really invite women in, and just kind of throwing something out, and we'll probably talk offline about this.
Mm-hmm.
If women come on to talk about the dynamics of their relationships, especially women of different cultures,
Yes.
and with that, and some of the barriers that they had to deal with in building that relationship, because
Mm-hmm.
there's some things that come up and that they had to, deal with. And I have white friends. I have friends from the Middle East. I have friends from Europe, friends from Africa. I have Black friends from different economic backgrounds, and it's just so I have a wide range of friends. And if we begin as women to talk about the diversity of our relationships and all of the obstacles that we face, but yet we remain friends, how
Mm-hmm.
we dealt with some of the prejudices or perceptions, negative or positive perceptions we've had.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and when we deal with those things, I think that will open up for other women to be more susceptible to being a part of an organization like this, because it's not just about racism, it's about connecting. And if we
Yes.
connect, like I kind of felt that one gave me chills a little bit. If we could, racism may be something we deal with, but really we just want to connect.
That's
That's
right.
right.
Yeah.
That's right.
That's right.
That's what, in mothers, we set the tone in our homes. And
Mm-hmm.
if we can celebrate diversity,
Yeah.
rather than be afraid of diversity,
Yes.
then we're going to come a long way very quickly.
Yeah.
And how do we do that? By getting to know each other, hearing each other's stories.
And being truthful.
Yes.
Yes.
I think it's really important that we allow people who have negative perceptions of us to be give them a space in respect, of course, to say how you feel, and ask the question, well, why do you feel that way?
That's right.
Why do you feel that way? And as we're having dialogue, allow me to tell you about me.
That's right.
You really don't know me. You just have a perception. But if I told you about me and you hear about me from me, then maybe that will change your view of me. And so create a safe space to have the discussion.
That's right.
Yeah. So that's
Okay.
it.
And I hope to think we have done that, and we will continue to work on that. We'll take any suggestions from anyone. But again, thank you, Wanda, so very much. This has been
Thank you.
You all have a wonderful evening.
Thank you. Thank you to our listeners, our viewers, and shameless plug, but please go out and
buy
support
get our t-shirts.
Buy our t-shirts.
Mine's on the way, so I would have one
on the way. We have masks as well to go along with our t-shirts. But we're planning to do a lot, and with this nonprofit organization, and create some grants and some, more space to have these kind of good dialogues that's necessary in America. So we hope we have your support, and thank you everyone for joining us. Wanda, stay blessed.
Likewise.
And we're so happy to have you on.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Don't let me be a stranger on here now, okay?
Say that again, hon.
Said, don't allow me to be a stranger on here, okay?
Oh, not at all. Not at all.
Not at all.
All right. Take care.
Bye-bye. Good night, everyone.